a very thoughtful person who processed experiences well and was able to talk about the lessons.
Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warmoth.
All right, welcome back, SGVers, to another episode of the SGV Master Key. Thanks for joining us. And if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching the show on YouTube, you probably noticed that it's a completely different studio. It's actually the same studio, but we just sort of brighten things up in here and modernize it, I guess. Right? That's the word you used.
It's a great change. I like it. It really looks nice. It's very comfortable.
Yeah, the lighting before was a little bit challenging around, and you asked about the blue light, and so many people are creating content online, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, and the use of colored LED lighting is heavily in use in those platforms.
And blue is a popular color?
I think all the spectrum of colors, yeah. But this happens to look nicer as compared to the red or the orange that we tried in here too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, a very comfortable feel. I like it.
Well, today, if you are not a regular fan of the show, or if you're not familiar with the show, we tell the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And I think we're on episode mid to late 60s. Is that right, Tori?
Yeah, it's like 65, I think.
65.
Yeah.
So in the previous episodes, we went through a recap of 1 through 20, 21 through 40, and now today for you, we're going to recap episodes 41 through 60. And like before, our behind-the-scenes person, Tori, is going to join us on this, so you'll get to hear her, but you won't get to see her this time. Okay, you guys ready? So in this episode, we had Danny Wu. This is, I believe, episode 41 or 40. Yeah, Danny Wu.
Yeah, Danny, your friend, but he was a very wise man.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, I was impressed with just his experiences and the way he had processed them.
Yeah, that was an exciting episode for me because he's been a lifelong friend of mine. But him sharing his stories, his experience, specifically his experience overcoming what happened with the basketball team and the tragedies there with the sexual abuse of some players. And yeah, that was a really interesting story there with him.
Yeah, and he is a teacher now in the Monterey Park School District. It's not called that. What's it called?
Oh, I think he teaches in West Covina, but he went back to Marqueppel High School as a coach.
Okay.
So he's coaching basketball there again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tori, feel free to chime in at any point.
Okay.
If you remember something interesting from those episodes. But that's episode 40. Definitely go check that out. Danny Wu, The Power of Basketball, Pulling Family Together. This next one, episode 43, Cameron Crane. Cameron is a strength coach, a trainer at Matador still, and she came on the show and she shared her experience living in Ethiopia. And if you recall, she had a pacemaker, and I think she's, not even 40 yet, but she's had this pacemaker for quite some time. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, right. And I do remember her living in Ethiopia. And yeah, she was, again, a very thoughtful person who processed experiences well and was able to talk about the lessons.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would be like to have a pacemaker at such a young age and be told that she would have to limit her life and the activities that she could do. But she sort of overcame that.
Well, she certainly adjusted to it and didn't let it affect what she wanted to do or how she lived her life.
Do you remember her?
Yeah, she was nice. I liked hearing her story of Ethiopia and how that changed her when she came back.
Oh yeah, I seem to recall she said that movement was how she connected with the the young men there or the young boys there through movement, right? Okay. So check that out, episode 43, Camden Crane. The next one, episode 44, Brian Chow. And Brian is with the Asian Youth Center, which you have donated to over the years, and you're familiar with the people there. Brian came to us from that connection, and he was recommended to share his story. And if you recall, he had sort of a troubled childhood or a troubled upbringing, and he was sent to the Asian Youth Center as a disciplinary thing, I believe.
Yeah, but what was remarkable is how he allowed it to change his life. For the better, of course. And so he was open to this new, I don't know if it was a way of thinking or a way of looking at his life, but, that's so important to be open when you are exposed to something. I mean, I guess when you're exposed, you're open to it, but to allow yourself to be exposed to it, to know that you need to make some kind of change and to do it.
I remember he may have been the first guest to cry on our show. Maybe it was Michelle, but I remember him when he was talking about his dad at court and him watching his dad or seeing his dad cry for the first time. That was when he said he realized the impact of what he was doing, had an impact on others in his life. And that was the point where he decided he wanted to change. Yeah, that was, do you remember that?
It's funny, I don't remember that.
No?
No.
It's pretty powerful. Then even when you hear it over again, it's still powerful.
Yeah, that was a really moving story. So episode 44, Brian Chow. And episode 45, Jennifer Love Tang. She's a teacher, I believe, in the Monterey Park School District. And she came to us as a referral from Danny. I think you recall that she ran, I believe,
for city council in Monterey Park. She was not elected, but she did run. And I think what was inspiring is that she saw community service as a way, as something inspirational to her.
Right.
And she sought it out. And, even though she lost that particular race, I believe she's, very active. And I remember that was her role. She felt her role as a teacher was to really, make a difference in the lives of her children, her students.
I remember something in particular is that there was an interesting discussion that Russell started about that, like how she views some of her students and helps them or tries to help them.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that. I also remember her parents were Cambodian, right? Immigrants, and she saw maybe how, I don't know if that's correct, how the Cambodian community or her parents and wanted to have an impact on people's lives. I think that's sort of tied into her story, but definitely go check that out. Episode 45, Jennifer Tang. This next guest was a referral from Tori's mom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was episode 46, Marianne Cintron. Marianne Cintron, do you remember her on the show?
Yeah, she worked with dyslexic children and or adults. I remember that, and she was fascinating.
Yeah, she shared some knowledge about the connections she either observed or discovered with music and dyslexia and helping people. I know she's authored and created materials for families, for people wanting to help, I think, children with dyslexia, but maybe both children and adults. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was quite fascinating. A wealth of information, if you're looking for someone who's very knowledgeable about dyslexia, that is definitely a show to check out.
I just remember she presented it so well. She was so really just well-spoken about the subject.
Okay, so that's episode 46, Marianne Cintron. 47, this is one of your friends, Scott, Joaquin Lim.
Yeah, Joaquin. Joaquin is known for being for having been the mayor of Walnut. Also a very fascinating person. Grew up in Hong Kong, but moved to the U.S., served in the U.S. Army, and is just a very pro-American at this point. He was probably wearing his American flag.
Yes, I think he was.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting person. I've gotten to know him very well, and he's just a special person who is very active in the community.
I remember him saying about himself that he learned in the Army discipline, and that he thought of himself as a person who always kept his appointments and showed up on time. And that was something that, he was very proud of it seemed like, right? If he said he was going to go somewhere, or if he was going to be somewhere at a certain time, he did it, and he was there at that time.
Oh, yeah, and I can tell you from experience, he is like that. If he tells you 7 o'clock, he's there at 10 till 7, and without fail.
But there's sort of a smile, and I see it on your face now whenever talking about him, because he's very lighthearted. It seems that, like, the conversation around him, he can be very funny at times, right? He has a good sense of humor.
Yeah, very funny. Well, I've had a lot of good times with him. I've known him for 11 years now, and he's one of those persons that I always enjoy being with. But he's just a very big, important part of the community.
Right, and I think he was one of the first, in fact, that's the title of his episode, is one of the first Asian American politicians.
Yeah, he was one of the co-founders of Chinese Elected Officials of Southern California, an organization that he formed with a couple other people, I believe with Judy Chu and with John Chung, who used to be our state treasurer. So yeah, he was one of the very first elected officials who was Chinese.
Awesome. So go check that out. Episode 47, Joaquin Lim. And if you're wondering, you may be wondering, why is his name Joaquin? And I think that's explained in the episode, right? Because we're talking first Asian, and yet his first name is Joaquin.
And I think it was because he had some Philippine background, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember. Do you remember, Dory?
Yeah, it had to do with the Philippines.
Okay. So episode 47, Joaquin Lim. Next, I forget how, it must have been Susanna Porras, this guest. Larry Wilson. Do you remember Larry Wilson?
Oh, yeah, of course, Larry Wilson. A newspaper man like myself.
Right.
I mean, the difference is he was a real one who lasted, 50 years or whatever. I did it for, 5 years. He was the editor of the Pasadena Star News, and he was a founder of, I think it's called Pasadena Weekly, but very interesting. He went to Berkeley, was on the journalism. I guess he was at the school paper there. I believe he covered rock concerts, if I remember.
I think so.
He's a music critic. But, very fascinating person to me also, because he just knows Pasadena inside and out. He grew up in Pasadena. He's a true Pasadenan. I'm not even sure what a person from Pasadena is called, but he's just very literate, very interesting, very witty.
Oh yes, you definitely get that sense that he's extremely well spoken. The way he just even carries himself, the way he's moving, the way he speaks is very eloquent.
Yeah, definitely very eloquent and well spoken. Yes.
That's where you guys were reminiscing of Hot Press. Is that it?
Yeah. Well, that was before about 1973. Most newspapers were published with
hotkeys, hot type.
Hot type, yeah. So before 1973, most newspapers were not most. All newspapers were hot type. So they used melted lead to form the letters. After 73, computers generated headlines and stories, and so they didn't use hot lead after that. But it was interesting. I remember my own newspaper days. It was during the hot lead days, and you'd have to read the newspaper for proofreading and so on. You'd have to read it upside down and backwards.
Wow. I remember that, you guys reminiscing about that, and I think you get to see when there's a guest of the same era, same generation as you, that's a part of the show too, right? Mm. You guys going back, not just with Larry, but other guests as well. So
yeah, because he's probably my exact same age. I believe we graduated from high school the same year.
So that's episode 48, Larry Wilson. Episode 49 is actually Tanya Nguyen. Tanya is a trainer that worked at Matador, and she's since gone on to open up her own studio in the Arts District in downtown Los Angeles. If you recall, she has a shaved head, and when she came on the show, she talked about her journey and her thoughts on being a trainer, but one of the things that I remember was she shared her recent experience of being drugged at a local bar in Pasadena. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, sort of an intense story.
Yeah, where I believe she was recognizing that something was not right, and she did make it home. And that's kind of terrifying. I mean, I've heard of these stories. I've read them. I've not known anybody personally who's had this happen. And, it's an unfortunate world that we have this kind of thing that happens.
Yeah, that story was worth listening. If you can go back and hear that, it is rather intense.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's episode 49, Tanya Nguyen. Episode 50, Paul Ledoux. And Paul is someone that Scott knows.
Yeah, Paul is one of my sort of colleagues at Burke Williams Spa. Not really a colleague, a fellow guest or patron. And so I got to know Paul, sitting in a hot tub, and we would have conversation. He's a big soccer fan. So we have Paul coming back on our show. He has since written and published a book, and it is a book that has to do with soccer. It's a book which is written for young people with a pretty powerful story. I've read his book. Paul is the one who taught me what an arrowhead is.
Did he?
Yeah, on this show.
Oh, did he?
Do you remember I didn't know what an arrowhead was?
No, I don't remember that. You remember that?
Yeah, he brought it from, I think, his dad's place in
Oh,
New
that's
Mexico.
right. Okay, yeah. I remember him bringing it, but I didn't remember that you didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I didn't know I didn't know if an arrowhead was like a natural state of the stone, and he explained that no, it is not.
I see. Okay.
Isn't that right? An arrowhead is not. I've since forgotten, I guess.
That's correct. They actually like chip away with another rock to make
form it.
Yeah. Well, this show is about the San Gabriel Valley, people in the San Gabriel Valley, the people who impact this area. And Paul, as a coach of many hundreds, if not thousands of young people, impacts the community in this way, in his way of coaching. So that's definitely an episode to go check out. Episode number 50, Paul Ledoux. Episode 51, and this was, I think Paul was the first guest that we had in this studio, right, when we moved from Pasadena.
That sounds right, yes.
So the second guest in the studio was Sahan Der Ohannesson. And Sahan, probably what you remember is that he brought food.
And it was delicious food too.
And I remember you couldn't wait because we were going to have it after the show. I think you had a sandwich before the show.
Oh, it was so good. The chicken. So he's from Lee's Hoagie
House.
Lee's Hoagie House on Colorado. And I go there today, anybody who's listening, and get the chicken hoagie. It is so delicious. It melts in your mouth.
Do you remember, Sahan?
Yeah. Definitely remember the food. It was my first time having it, and it's really good.
Oh, yeah. I think you took home the leftovers right at the end.
Yeah.
So beyond that, I believe he shared his story. Like many of our guests, he is an immigrant to the United States. He shared that story. But what I remember was he had 2 heart attacks in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, you're right.
And he just kept going, right? And he was also making light of it on the show, right? But that's pretty serious. And that was sort of a part of his story. And what I experienced with Sahan and going to Lee's Hoagie House is he remembers everybody's name. When you walk in there, he'll greet you by name, and it's quite unique. But I know that he really enjoys what he does, and that place on Colorado Boulevard between Allen and Sierra Madre, Lee's Hoagie House, It's definitely a fixture in the community here in the San Gabriel Valley in Pasadena. So check that out if you can, and definitely listen to episode 51. This next one is Danny's cousin, Jason Hahn. Do you remember Jason? Dr. Jason Hahn.
I do remember. Former trainer for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe.
He was, yes. And I believe some of his Steeler clients came also to work with him here. I believe he was a trainer for the LA Galaxy also.
Yes, the soccer team.
Yes, and he's opened his own practice, Health Fit, I believe in Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
But his story, if you recall, was about judo. Do you remember that? No,
yes,
I'm sorry, taekwondo.
He was an international level taekwondo performer, artist.
Yes. Did you remember that?
Yeah.
He almost made it. He was going to make it to the Olympics.
Number 3 or something.
Something like that, yeah. And I think he shared that it was devastating at the time, but he had to get through that period in his life, and now he has a family. I think he has a wife-daughter, and this practice in Pasadena. So pursuing Taekwondo to physical therapy. That's the title of that episode. Episode 52 with Jason Hahn, Dr. Jason Hahn. Sorry. Okay, episode 53. I'm laughing because I remember when he was walking into the studio here, pulling a cart full of stuff.
Oh, it must be David Lozano.
That's right. Yes. So David Lozano, paperboy reaching for governor. He was a gubernatorial candidate for California, and he brought with him scuba tank and scuba gear.
Yes, right. Yes, he was very interesting. Incidentally, I have to compliment Tori on these nice titles.
Oh,
a paperboy to reaching for governor. It really does tell the story.
Yes,
I think. Good job. Those are good titles that you affix to each episode. But yeah, David, he came in with his scuba equipment, but I think our first 20 minutes was talking about being paper boys.
Yeah.
Because again, he was my generation more or less, and we had both been paper boys, and it was to me, I think having been a paper boy is a big deal, and he felt the same way, and it was a great conversation.
What I found interesting about that is because we sort of knew, maybe his political affiliation. I think you guys even had some legal interaction before he was a guest, right? And so I was sort of wondering, how's this going to go? I mean, I think you can be respectful to whomever. We don't know this person coming in. And to see you guys have this connection on this topic was quite fascinating.
Yeah, and actually what it shows is that really if people could get to a more common ground than just political beliefs, then things would be a lot better, because there are more things that, that ground and connect us with each other than political beliefs.
Sure.
Things that are more fundamental, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you two, if you go to that episode in the first, like you said, 20 minutes, I'm laughing just recalling that, because you guys were giddy, recalling these, I think it was like having to collect on people stiffing you for a quarter.
Big thing, especially we were younger then. It was not as much money at issue, but, there were people that would ignore you, not answer your phone call when you go to, or your knock on the door when you go to try to collect, the $2 that they owe you for the month, really interesting about people.
Yeah. And, his item, if you're wondering why did he bring a scuba tank? So that was his item that we asked each guest to bring an item with him. And that was tied to a story where he was almost left for dead, right? In the middle of the ocean on a dive. And I guess it got dark and the boat left. I'm laughing because he survived it, but that must have been just absolutely terrifying,
Right.
And the boat did come back for him, but gosh, what a story.
Yeah, there was also a shark involved.
Oh, there was?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
That's one of the reasons why he was stuck in the water for a while, was because there was a shark and he was trying to, not be noticed by it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Wow.
So check out that episode 53, David Lozano, Paperboy Reaching for Governor. I should have read the rest of the titles, huh? I'll read them from now.
Yeah. They're very good. The titles are very good.
Thank you.
So this is episode 54, John Matisse, the Transparent CEO.
Right. Yes. He was the CEO of a company. He is the CEO of a company in Glendale.
Vegilabs.
Yes. Right. And he wants to, present his ideas to other people and share those ideas, what it's like to run a company and how to run a company well. And then he also is a Boy Scout leader.
Right. I think with 2 boys, he said.
Right.
And this was this was the first episode, I believe, where I was doing it remote. Right.
That's right. You were doing it remote. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't personally meet him until you came back and we had lunch with him.
Yes. Very, very, I would say, humble man.
Right.
Very humble. And I remember asking him about, his philosophy on being a CEO. And much of it was just, to speak to his people, to get to know them. Yeah, really fascinating guy. If you want an in-depth look from the perspective of someone who has to go into a situation and run a company as an outsider coming in, this is a great episode to listen to. Episode 54. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Warmouth Law. At Warmouth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. They've been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them today at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast. Okay, next episode is episode 55, Terry Huerta, Visionary for the Mission. And Terry is another one of Scott's friends. I met her, you introduced me to her at a chamber dinner, I think.
Well, she's been real active in the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, but she is very much active working with the San Gabriel Mission, which I don't know if you remember, we call it the San Gabriel Mission, but didn't she say it was a different name?
I vaguely remember that, but I don't remember what the name is.
Okay, listen to the episode. And if you hear the correct answer, email us, please.
Or put it in the comments. Yes, put it in the comments.
Yeah, we're saying something not quite right, but anyway.
Mission San Gabriel.
Yeah, I believe that's it. Mission San Gabriel.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, but she has gone, just devoted her recent life to building and even rebuilding the mission. And, it went through a fire a couple of years ago and threw back some of her, their efforts, and she had to start it up again. But, that mission is very important. And, we learned a lot of things. That was, I believe, really the foundation of the whole city of Los Angeles.
Indeed. And one of the anchor points of this show and the name of this show, when trying to think of what are iconic pieces to the San Gabriel Valley, what represents the San Gabriel Valley, and there were a number of things looked at, but at the heart of it was the San Gabriel Mission.
Right. And, if you think of some of the other missions throughout the state, they may have higher profile. So she's trying to bring Mission San Gabriel to that profile that it really does deserve.
Yeah, so go check out that episode number 55, Terry Huerta, Visionary for the Mission. All right, episode 56, the only guest to return for 3 times. So this was his 3rd appearance on the show.
Glenn Evans,
Home Turf Adventure. So, I mean, Glenn is a great, interesting guy. Lots of stories, lots of experiences all over the world. And in previous episodes, which we've recapped before, he talked about his adventures, whale wars in the Antarctic Ocean, trying to stop whaling ships and traveling to Russia. And this time he shared about some art that he had. I don't remember the name of the painting that was under controversy with the Saudi Arabian buyer. Do you remember that?
I don't remember either.
But he do you remember the painting?
No, I don't remember the title.
So So you have to watch that episode to check it out.
Yes, and put it in the comments.
But if it was real, I believe it would be worth millions, right? But he did bring in some of his Banksy art, right? That he had, and that was interesting. I believe there was some notes or something. There was a Wheel of Fortune thing.
He had something personal that he had brought in.
Comic book.
Oh yeah, a comic book. Yeah, what didn't have anything to do with Banksy, right?
But he was going to get it appraised or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Well, he's just he's always full of adventure. He is your true life adventurer, which is why he's been on 3 times. He's just lived this life that we all dream of, right? Traveling the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is behind the camera, but every time I think of him, I sort of imagine like in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So going out, discovering or looking at ancient ruins, relics.
Right, yes.
Having adventure. And his thing was like, if you have the opportunity to touch it, ask, because this moment may never present itself again. So check out that episode, number 56, Glenn Evans. Okay, this next episode, Henry Lowe. Episode 57, Mayor from the School Board. And Henry is another one of your friend, Scott.
Yes, he's the mayor of Monterey Park. At least he was at that time, and I know it changes from time to time. But yes, I've known him for a long time as a political person, but a very approachable, friendly, kind person, not, a politician per se, but somebody who cares. And he cares about his community, which is why he got involved. And he grew up not in Monterey Park, but nearby. And he just, cares about where he lives and how the people, he cared especially about the school district, having been on the school board for a number of years. So, yeah, a very, very nice guy.
Yes, I remember Henry was very involved and passionate with the school. I don't know what it was, school district. Maybe it was Garvey School District. Does that sound familiar?
I believe so, yeah.
So go check out that episode, number 57, Henry Lowe.
I believe he has a cat or a dog that's his really close friend.
His dog.
His dog. Yeah.
I think I remember that. Okay. So find the dog's name, put it in the comments. All right, moving on. Episode 58, Seiko Nagata, Auto Education and Service. So Seiko is my auto mechanic. I found him, well, actually I didn't find him. Elizabeth found him in 2015. And, I've had mechanics over the years, mostly bad. But Seiko is an amazing person, amazing mechanic. And, he sat here in the studio, and when we started asking him about his background, he was naming these names and locations, and I just thought, wow, you went to the high school I went to.
He grew up in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And pretty much a contemporary of you, right?
Yes.
You had always thought he was from Japan.
Yes.
And he wasn't. I believe he was actually born in the U.S.
Yes.
But he has this very humble, a very kindly, countenance. His appearance is just very humble, but obviously he's a very honest and hardworking mechanic, and really an impressive person.
Wouldn't you have thought he was born in Japan?
Yeah, he had the characteristics of someone that I would have thought was from Japan.
Right, and he shared his journey, his working career, having gone to Japan, come back, and having 2 young girls at a young age being the catalyst for him to want to start his own business.
In fact, I believe his personal item that he brought were pictures of his 2 daughters.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember their names, but they're teenagers now.
Right.
But Seiko, yeah, that's a great episode to get insight into, how he came to be a business owner, a mechanic, and his shop is in Monrovia off of Mountain, and they specialize in Japanese foreign vehicles. So Seiko Nagata, episode 58. All right, moving on. Episode 59, Alberto Martinez. Once a web designer, always in the web evolution. And I think it was the first time I heard Web 3.0 was when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
Had you heard that before?
No, I hadn't heard it, but it had to do with cryptocurrency and the next phase of the web, basically.
And so that episode was not really intended for learning about that stuff, but it sort of moved into there where we were learning about, I forget what it's called, but when an item transfers.
NFT.
Yes.
NFT, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, what is the security feature, though, that tracks it? That's what he was...
the blockchain.
There we go, yes.
Yes, the blockchain.
And I learned, or it was easy to see that he was, one, very knowledgeable about the subject, but also quite passionate about web.
Right. Yeah, that's his life.
And the other part that we got from that is, that was also a very touching story that he shared, was a hope that he had held on to, that he would be reunited with his daughter, so much so that he maintained an extra room wherever he lived in just in case she came looking for him. And that was really moving. And he shared that eventually she did come looking, and now they're reunited.
Yes, they had been separated at an early age, and he always held out the hope of her coming back, and finally she did.
He shared with me that his daughter watched the episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she was really moved, and she had never known that.
She didn't know that story?
No.
Wow, that is really, really neat.
And we just put out a short with that part out in it, and I just spoke with him today, and he said, he really liked it a lot.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
Wow.
Go check out that episode 59, Alberto Martinez. And he owns a company, Flourish and Prosper, but he does a vast array of things he's involved in, right? So you can learn all about that on that episode. Okay, we're down to the last one, episode 60, and this is Tomoko Hino.
She is what is the name of her business in the Arcadia Shopping Mall?
Aroma Head Spa.
Yeah, Aroma Head Spa, which is, who knows what that is, right? I mean, I've never heard of a head spa.
I didn't until that episode, no.
Yeah.
So this episode is a mixed Japanese making her own way. And if I close my eyes and I hear her speak 100%, I would say this person is Japanese, right? And that was a lot of her story, was what she struggled with, having been born to an American father in Japan and growing up in Japan. And not only an American father, but a Black American, African American father in Japan. And the struggles that she endured both over there and then coming back to live here in the San Gabriel Valley.
But how she really embraces her Japanese heritage. And even though she faced so much in the way of negativity as she was growing up, she still embraces that. She got it from her mother, who was, of course, Japanese, pure Japanese. And yeah, she's a very sensitive soul.
So those are our episodes 41 through 60. We hope you check them all out. But if you heard anyone in there in particular, go check out that episode and get a feel for the show. You can always drop us a comment in the YouTube comments or on our website, www.sgvmasterkey.com, and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And we'll see you next week in another episode. Thanks for joining us here.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.